and it's All Matters referendum. In studio, I'm joined by George Mburu. He's in the real estate sector. He's in the space. He's been monitoring what's going on. We also have Reginald Kadzutu. He is an economist as well. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Jeff.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So yesterday we saw what happened at the Senate. George, as business people, because most people say this is where you hold on to your money first to assess and see what happens. Is there such, in terms of data, are you seeing something like that taking place, such a trend as far as businesses are concerned, or is business still moving, even with all that's happening politically?
Yeah, thank you very much. We people in the business and as a country, we have to exist with the times, and we have to operate under the rules and government, and life must continue. Despite any policies, despite anything. So business continues. You can't say that you will not continue working because there's a certain, you'll be surprised, in other countries, people are working and there are wars, there are fights. Like, for example, because I've said our customers come from all over, even all over the world. I have a customer like who are in Dubai and other countries, and like Qatar. There are fights, but life continues. You can't say that you will not continue working, you will not continue with business because of one or two things. So we appreciate that there is that BBI and the referendum is coming, but business must continue. We can't say that we will stop and wait, because life must continue.
Reggie? There's also the story, and this was quite the narrative that was put out there, the cost of this particular process, the referendum right now. We can take this money and use it and channel this into other activities. You have a pandemic going on, you have a business community that would need a lot of capital injected into that particular space. In terms of cost, is this a political argument, or is there some merit in the sense that this is quite a costly affair, now more so than ever before?
I think it's a mixture of both. There's a bit of politics in it. Was one, how government finances operate. Even if they say they're going to have a referendum in July or August, it's not like there's money seated in a vault somewhere specifically for that. They'll have to find the money. So if they did not have the referendum, it's not like even if it was going to cost 14 billion, what is being thrown around, it's not like that 14 billion is seated somewhere. Then we say, okay, we're not going to have a referendum, so this 14 billion can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they don't have a referendum, Treasury will be happy because they don't have to look for that 14 billion. So it's neither here or there of saying that, oh, this money could have been used somewhere else. If you notice, money is only used when it is found in the finance bill. Unless Treasury comes with an emergency something, or unless it's a national emergency, where they can pull resources from other areas to spend there. So even if they don't do a referendum, and there were no plans to put money into businesses or elsewhere, that money would not go there. Mm-hmm. So when people understand that that's how national finances work, it is not that someone's whim who wakes up and say, okay, stop BBI, that 9 billion, go put it into education. It actually doesn't work that way. So mm-hmm. in terms of money, the question is, how are they going to raise the money for the referendum, and at what cost will that raising of that money come? Or are they going to rationalize some ministries, maybe remove something from defense, something from education, something, and bring so that the budget deficit does not increase? Mm-hmm. So it's just now, how are they going to fund it? Okay. But whether they have it or not, whether it can be reapportioned to something else, that's neither here or there.
Okay, it's interesting you speak about it. From what you've seen in terms of how the government has been exercising its financial prudence, what do you think, if we get a referendum, would be the most natural progress in terms of how they get their financing? Rationalize, because we've also seen a government that has quite a high appetite for debt. What do you think is the lowest hanging fruit there? How do they get this done in the shortest time?
Most probably they'll issue a bond in the local market. There's a lot of liquidity in the market. Issue a bond for 10 billion, 5-year bond, pay 8% on it. Yeah, and they've issued it. Mm-hmm. Or unless they've already earmarked something from, because I know they're supposed to go to the Eurobond market, unless they've already earmarked something from that sale. Most probably, that's how they'll raise the money. Then you'll most probably hear that, no, we have reduced this expenditure, that expenditure here, so that's how we've created this 9. But the essence of that, even that 9 for that expenditure was going to be raised either through taxes or through borrowing. Right. Either way, Yeah, so they will just come and say we'll spend less. But yeah, as you said, at the end of the financial year, when you look at it, there's actually no place where they'll actually spent less. Yeah.
Okay, George, even if where it stands, because with all that's happening, we've seen the resumption of regular tax rates. Some people are saying if there was ever a time we can give these business people reprieve tax-wise, this would be it. How's the current tax regime for business people? We've seen around the world most governments trying to cushion, the business operators wherever they are, for various reasons, from the debts we've taken, from the regulations that have come with those particular debts. We've had to, stack up our tax in a certain way. How's that affecting how business is operating?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. You can appreciate that currently the people have been hard hit economically, and the government also is also taxing people. What I can encourage the government, there was a time it had given certain incentives and had reduced the VAT, had reduced the pay, and people at least had some money. And that really worked very well, especially when Corona was was hard hit, the second wave before the third wave. What I can encourage is if that can be done again, I'm sure we can come out of the turmoil of the economic meltdown where we are at, because we also have Corona, we have economic meltdown. So people at this moment, they need to be actually encouraged, and let's encourage also people to do more business. We have seen now in the world has become a global village. And we have people who are in the diaspora and they really want to retire back at home, so they have interest back at home. Let's encourage those people. We have young people who would like to go outside the country, to go and other countries to find their age group is a majority of people are old, so they need energetic young people like we have in Africa who are educated in Kenya. Let's also export that labor. Those people, we encourage them to come and bring the money back at home. And when you do that, also looking at not taxing so much, just tax slightly, and you will get more people are getting into the tax bracket, and by so doing, the government will raise more revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you talk about the tax bracket, Reggie, how do we get more people into that particular space? Because therein usually lies a problem. We can't get more people into this particular bracket, so we raise taxes for those who we can actually get. How do you get, especially the informal sector, to be part of this and pay so that we can all share these government benefits as we move forward?
I think to increase the tax bracket or the tax net, the number one logical one is just create more formal sector jobs. You cannot keep on creating fictitious informal sector jobs and you expect that your tax base is going to increase.
When you say fictitious, do you mean they don't exist, or we can't track them?
When you want to know that a government is lying, they will always use a statistic in an area where you and I cannot verify. Yeah? Diaspora remittances, informal sector jobs. Formal sector jobs is very easy because you can easily do a survey of all the companies and they tell you, yes, we hired this amount, we hired this, whatever, we hired this, and you can add up the numbers. How do you come up to 860,000? Informal sector jobs. These guys are already in informal sector, they don't pay taxes. So I don't think they're going to answer any government survey and say, yes, I hired four new people. You're getting yourself caught. So how do they actually measure informal sector? Most of that is mostly estimates that happen. And there's the seasonality of informal sector jobs. So I might be working in construction site in January, the construction finishes in March, I don't find any other job until December. But because I worked between January and March, I'm counted as I was employed. So whenever you want to know that a government doesn't want to tell you the truth or things are not thick, the thing that grows the most is the thing that you are not actually able to say, can we pinpoint? Like diaspora remittances, you cannot have a trajectory of diaspora remittances pointing upwards like that. As in, all of a sudden, Kenyans got increments, especially it was during this year of the demonetization. So if you're going to increase taxes, you need to grow, one, formal sector jobs. You need to slowly bring some of the areas in the informal sector in a way which does not kill. Because again, if you formalize the formal sector, you kill it. I'll give you an example. The lady that sells mangoes, your mama mboga, if you start telling her, out of your earnings, you have to now pay, even if it's 3%, or let's even use the minimum 1% tax, yeah, or the lady for chapatis, all of a sudden chapatis have gone up by 1%. The person who was buying because the chapatis were cheap. They could not buy the ones from Naivas. They were able to buy this one was just 5 bob. But now, because you have given a 1%, 2% tax, that chapati is now no longer 5 bob, it's now 15 bob. She loses customers and you kill her business. So people say, no, go for the informal sector. I'm thinking, if you go for the informal sector and make them pay tax, you kill the informal sector, which is currently the lifeline of the country right now, in terms of business activity and all that stuff. So the only way of increasing your tax base is literally grow more formal sector jobs. That means you might actually grow your tax base by reducing your taxes. What do I mean? If you want a business to hire more people, you want it to expand, but 30% of their revenue is going to pay KRA. If you want to reduce that and say, okay, instead of having 70% of your revenue, which 10% still goes to paying operating costs, another 10% salaries, you only remain with a 40%, 30% margin. How do you increase the business margin to that the business ends up with 40, 50%? Once the business is 40, 50%, they will start expanding. As they start expanding, they'll realize, the Kenyan economy is too small, let's start expanding to Uganda, to Tanzania, to the rest of Africa. So the only way of increasing your tax base is actually by reducing the taxes of the people that you currently have, so that you grow the formal sector, which now employs more people into the formal sector, and your tax base increases. But if you focus on the informal sector and want to go and tax them, one, you'll kill their business, and two, the second question is, what are you doing to them? What are you doing for them that you want to tax them? You have not helped that Mama Mboga to make a chapati. You have not helped her, given even a shed for her to work. There's no electricity where she's working. You've put VAT on gas and charcoal on kerosene. You've made their life even difficult. But then you want to come and also just eat from. I think it's also not fair. Okay. It's interesting, even before I get to George on this, because when you say that when you're having an upward trajectory in terms of domestic foreign remittances coming to the country, creation of these fictitious, as you say, informal jobs, to what end? Is it just signaling that the business environment is good, let us continue, everything is fine? Why would the government try and send this particular message to the markets, to the business environment? It's not really to the business environment, it's to their lenders. You get debt because you have ability to repay. So before you borrow, everyone has to look and say, are you going to be able to repay? One of the statistics they look at is debt to GDP. And that's why there are always these stories of rebasing GDP. They also started talking about rebasing GDP because everyone is saying, your debt to GDP is too high. I don't think you'll be able to pay. So what is the solution if you can't grow GDP? You go change the mathematics and say, no, actually we realized we're not counting this, like what we did in 2013 when Jubilee came into power. And we said, we are now a middle income country. And our debt to GDP dropped to below 50% to 40%, which gave them room to borrow. So when some of these statistics are coming, it's just trying to show that, no, we have capacity to repay our debt. So lenders don't get jittery, credit raters don't downgrade your rating, because those are the things that they look at. Do you have capacity to whatever? Is your economy growing? Are you creating jobs? Is consumption increasing? So when governments play with the numbers, they play with the numbers for where the paper comes from. But now what we hope is that internally they'll say, okay guys, this was for Jeff and K24. Now internally here we know this is where we truly are. Right. What do we need to do? But it seems like now as they play to the gallery, internally also they now swallow their own deceit and make wrong policies. Okay.
George, from a policy perspective, and this is not only to real estate but the whole business sector as a whole, what's needed as we move forward? Because yes, last year has been a tough year. This year, people are still trying to, get their businesses back in operation. We'll have the referendum. Usually, an election year, business typically is usually slow. From a policy side, from a government side, what's needed to keep businesses moving, and for those that have probably come to a halt, to try and restart in 2021 going into 2022? Sure.
What is needed is actually very simple, and it's something that should have been done from the word go, and that is to create a very conducive working environment for business people and for everybody.
What does that usually mean? Because when you say that, and you'll hear President Uhuru Kenyatta saying that they have given a very good working business environment, that's one thing the government is proud of. What aren't they doing within that particular space?
Yeah, you'll be very surprised that people love paying taxes. It's only that the manner in which maybe that tax is being asked or maybe other revenues is being collected, is being collected maybe in a very ruthless manner. Maybe it's an approval, you need an approval. All you need to pay is some county revenue. And before the county revenue comes to you in a very polite manner, they come and first of all stop your work, cross your construction, or what have you, or close your business if you need a business permit. For example, I have seen people selling something like liquor, people selling beer. The beer is taken away, people are arrested. You find sometimes the people in the government, they use very crude method of maybe collecting the revenue. But if people can be encouraged, you'll be surprised, even the Bamamboga, the Boda people, if there is a way they can be paid and they are not harassed, they are given a very good security, they are given a conducive environment, you'll be surprised that everybody will appreciate paying taxes, will appreciate holding hands with the government, and also the government also has to become accountable and give service. For example, if it is somewhere a road is needed, security is needed, such support would go a long way, and that would mean that now the people and the government would have to work like partners, like friends, and you'd be surprised even the rate of crime would decrease, people would stop avoiding paying taxes.
I want to counter that, because even as you say that, the other argument is that there are various business lobby groups. You have the Chamber of Commerce, we have, I'm sure in the real estate sector, various lobby groups there as well. And essentially, their work should be, like when you're talking about such issues to do with the business environment, forwarding that to the government, telling them this is a problem. I mean, as a Kenya Private Sector Alliance, this is our problem that we're having, so that in turn informs how the government deals with this particular sector. Yeah. What's happening with these particular players? Yeah.
The problem is that sometimes you of the day.
Reggie, from where you stand, because I know you have very many also unorthodox ideas on how to deal with this. How do we deal with a business environment where very many players are complaining? I've spoken about the lobby groups that should be playing their role. Are they the ones who are dropping the ball? Can they do more, or is it benevolence of government? When they decide to reward the business environment, they will do it. How do we change this and make sure such players can actually get business done?
I think for me, there are pretty much two ways. Number one, government itself needs to get out of business, because you have a conflict of interest. You can't be trying to create an environment, a fair playing field, and you're also involved in the playing, exactly. So it becomes a very difficult area to manage. Secondly, when we get Parliament to start doing their job of legislation, the lobby groups should not be lobbying a president. They should be lobbying Parliament. And as long as we can move to institutionalization of policy, economic policies, then we are moving into the right direction than to moving to executive orders or through because when it comes to business, the president affects business through the finance bill, through his ministries, through the expenditure, and all that still comes from the budget. So lobbying the president is just trying to get things into the budget. But when things are put in legislation, for example, and you go and say 20% of all or 30% of all construction materials in a construction site should be sourced from the country. That can be done through a legislation. Then now, once the Parliament has done that, the government has done its job. Now it's up to the entrepreneurs to say, okay, now with this opportunity, every construction, 20% has to be done. The city inspectorate or whoever can come and say, okay, this is your bill of quantities. How much or where are you getting the local supply from, and all. So I think that's a way we can get the government to support, because the government is supposed to give an enabling environment. You have issues of electricity, and I know you mentioned that the government prides itself in reducing the index of doing business, but compared to global standards, we are still very, very far away. We have improved, yes, in some areas, but look at the areas of licensing. There was a study that was done. If you want to export avocado from Kenya, you have to deal with close to 14, 15 institutions before you get your avocado on a container or on a plane to actually fly out. And that's government bureaucracy. Those are the things the government can come and say, no, everything is done at this point. You know, you apply for everything and you get your thing from one portal, your digital economy agenda that the government is trying to put in place. So there is the element of goodwill, But I think also lobby groups need to stop trying to get audience with the president and get audience with the relevant committees in parliament.
Okay.
Because once the committee passes legislation, it's done. It has to be implemented.
Right.
A president can make a suggestion and parliament refuses to pass legislation, then all your lobbying and crying will not have gone to much success.
Okay, we have 2 minutes to go before we bring this to a close. I'll take parting shots. Gentlemen, George, I'll start with you very quickly. What's your parting shot this morning?
Yeah, thank you very much. My parting shots are that we as Kenyans are a resilient country, and now the world has become a global village. So let's also encourage, take advantage of that. We have seen the president recently talking with the Tanzanian president. They are going to the DRC and other parts of the world. Let's encourage the government to continue with that, opening up opportunities for young people, for we as a country. The workforce and the labor we have in adequately. Let's make maximum use of it, and by so doing we are also going to stabilize our economy, and let's also encourage people to continue in the real estate, because it's a sector that can unlock our potential. Yeah, so me as Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, we want to encourage Kenyans to continue being resilient. Let's continue working hard. Let's continue putting God first, and at the end of the day, things are going to be good on our side.
Okay, Reggie, you can now put your statistics aside. If you want to give some optimism, this is a good time to go for it. An optimistic message. This will be the best time.
My parting shot was let's have more data, factual, statistical driven decisions as a country and even as individuals. Before you invest in a business, before you put an investment anywhere, before you help your child choose what degree to do and all that stuff, let's use data, let's use statistics. We are able to make better decisions. Because Jeff, we are getting to June. We don't know the GDP for 2020. So what data have we been using to make decisions all along? Even if they give us that GDP for 2020 in June, we are halfway through the year. What is that data going to help us? So not just data driven, but timely, accurate data is what Kenyan policymakers need. That's what businesses need. For even the guys in the real estate sector to know how many houses to build, they need to know how many people were employed, which sector grew. So businesses operate in a cloud of uncertainty because we don't have data, and we end up making wrong decisions, and we end up in the mess that we are in as a country. Okay.
Data-driven decisions is where we'll actually wind up our conversation this morning. Thank you so much, George Mburu, the CEO, Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, for your time this morning. Asante sana. Reginald Kazutu, an economist as well. Thank you so much for coming through to the show and your insights on this particular discussion. As always, I'll still keep the conversation going online. You can get me on Twitter at @IamJeffMotor or at K24 TV. We can converse there. As business continues in this political environment, how do you move it forward? And of course, as we've been told, how do you make sure even the decisions we're making personally on a business front are data-driven? Worthy conversation to have online as well. We take a short break now. When we are back on the other side, we get interactive. Don't go too far. This is K24 This Morning.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking